Hope you enjoyed the last one. It's a double dose of Dragon Ball Dissection with M2 Part 2. And I think it's finally time for some baby in this baby arc. Last time the gang arrived to planet M2, which could be hit or miss. A huge conspiracy and betrayal shook our heroes to the core. They met villains who could be functionally interesting, but not incredibly memorable. And Pan got a huge amount of focus only for it to end with an episode and a half of repeating the same gag over and over again until you just want to scream. And as we left off, Goku was fighting Mega Rilled, the more naked form of Hyper Mega Rilled, the more dead body part wearing form of General Rilled. I will give this fight credit though. While Rilled as a character is as exciting as stale toast seasoned with wheat germ, the fight itself is interesting. Goku having to constantly evade Rilled's metallic breath creates tangible stakes and tension. It feels a bit like a slasher movie for a few moments. But most notable is the fight's use of environments. Toriyama is absolutely fantastic at creating action sequences that easily read, that flow from panel to panel. Even at its worst, it's gorgeous. However, his biggest weakness is in coming up with creative landscapes in which to stage those fights. It's an obvious Dragon Ball criticism to joke that half the series takes place in identical wastelands. Dragon Ball loves its rocky quarries so much it might as well be Super Sentai. It's typically been up to Toei to shore up the creativity on that end, with its movies occasionally setting the action in more diverse landscapes. But now that they're doing their own series, I'm happy to see them finally bring that idea to full fruition. A decent chunk of this episode's fighting takes place in an abandoned movie theater, which is certainly different than anything we've seen before. But you know me, I'm far more concerned with storytelling than the visuals. If the theater served no more purpose than as a backdrop, I'd give it a brief compliment and move on. What I like about this is that the location influences the fight. In fact, this sequence couldn't really happen if it wasn't in a theater. Goku strategizes by using the audio from the film to trick Rilled. He fires a drink fountain at Rilled to distract him. He hides in the billboard. Now that's what I'm talking about. There are only so many ways you can knock somebody through a mountain. This is memorable. After Pan's last ejection, she received the Dragon Balls. Or a Dragon Ball? We saw 3 go through a portal, but only 1 appeared to her. It's weird. Anyway, she flies over to let Goku know, which leads to both of them being encased in carbonite. Good job, Pan. Maybe they should have taken you back to Earth. Speaking of unclear conveyance, this episode seems to have a problem with scale. In some shots, Goku appears to be the size of Rilled's foot. Rilled can catch Pan's slab in one hand. At first I thought maybe I didn't realize how huge Rilled was, or maybe his transformation made him bigger. He is the whole planet after all. But Dr. Mew is likewise significantly bigger than Trunks' slab. And I know for certain that Giru isn't this big compared to the other 3 leads. He'd have to look like this for this scaling to make sense. Way to go, Studio Live. This is actually a pretty good looking episode, I just don't understand this. Anyway, all 3 slabs are teleported to Dr. Mew's planet so they can be scanned. Even though they've been scanned before. Oh, and also scanning involves saws and drills? Again, I have no idea what's going on. Giru shows up, which Dr. Mew allows given all he's accomplished. He also calls him T2006, which threw me off because I didn't expect a shortening of his serial number to take digits from the middle. I honestly thought Giru was impersonating another robot at first. Anyway, the game is up. Turns out that Giru is packing quite a bit in that tiny body, including munitions and a magic crystal remote that undoes carbonite. Yeah, sure, why not? But apparently magic carbonite reversal is a free action as Giru undoes it, and undoes it, and undoes it on Goku, and everyone just stands around and watches him do it. And then when he's freed Goku, he does the same thing to Pan, and everyone just stands around and watches him do it. I think if you're this incompetent, you deserve to have your Han Solo action figures taken away from you. After watching this happen twice, a robot finally gets his gears in gear and grabs Trunks' slab. A game of keep away ensues, which ends exactly how you'd expect it to, with Trunks shattered on the floor. Even Dr. Mew grieves over this, as he earlier stated that if the slab was broken, Trunks would never return to the way he was. Clearly, keeping Trunks intact is vital to Dr. Mew's work, which is why he almost sawed him into pieces. I don't need to explain to you how that makes sense. But now the game is truly up. Trunks descends a staircase, revealing that this whole thing has been a complete fake-out. Giru never betrayed them. He and Trunks had been in cahoots the entire time, all to give Trunks a chance to gather information on Dr. Mew's biggest, most secretive project, Baby. Oh boy. Remember a few episodes ago when I said that Dragon Ball GT is more interested in twists than it is in telling a story? This is what I was talking about. I can't imagine how many times I would have to watch this before it made a lick of sense. I don't think it ever would, because making sense was never its goal. Its goal was to shock the kids in the audience when Giru aligned himself with the bad guys, just so it could shock the kids in the audience again when it's revealed that Giru didn't actually align himself with the bad guys. You could never convince me there was any thought put into this reveal. There are so many details here that just don't mesh together. I don't even know if I can remember them all, but let's try. So, by random chance, the spaceship happens to pass by Giru's home planet, something nobody else would have noticed had Giru not pointed it out. Was that random chance? Or was the plan already in motion, just made to look like a coincidence? Giru and Pan barely seem able to convince Trunks to go to M2 in the first place. Was that part of the ruse? Or did Trunks and Giru talk about it later? If the latter, it sure is lucky that Pan decided to advocate for Giru. Why did this even need to be kept secret from Goku and Pan? What if Pan had managed to succeed in keeping Trunks from being teleported to Dr. Mew's planet? That's something they wouldn't have had to worry about if Pan knew he was supposed to go there. Did Trunks' plan involve leaving Pan completely alone on an alien planet? The same guy who wanted to take her home because he feared for her safety? She infiltrated the enemy base by herself. She could have been killed countless times. Pan doesn't know because she's the viewpoint character, and if we're going to be surprised, she has to be surprised. Giru spends these episodes doing weird things like shorting out and receiving messages from Rild. Was all of that just an act? Were Trunks and Giru trying to take advantage of Mew's plan to capture them, or was that just a coincidence too? They do exposit that Giru was suffering from amnesia when they first met him, and those memories began to return as they got closer to M2. This close? Or long before? Impossible to say. Goku admits he knew something was up when Trunks got Bespined. What? Why would that give anything away? And how could Trunks and Giru possibly have planned out in advance the exact scenario wherein Trunks is captured, is freed by Pan, who is then menaced by a Metal Breath villain, requiring Trunks to jump in the way and take the blast himself? What if that had happened when Trunks was unconscious? Or Pan was unconscious? This is clearly here to make Goku look smart because he's the hero. But I'd argue the entire premise is far more plausible if the plan didn't exist until Giru swapped out the real Trunks for the fake Trunks. But if this moment was indeed what tipped Goku off to there being a plan, then that's impossible. It had to have happened before they got to M2 because that's the last opportunity Trunks and Giru could have conversed in private. Then you have this little nugget where Trunks returns to the ship looking for the Dragon Balls and curses Giru's betrayal. You can't argue that he's just playing the role because he's completely alone. Pan is unconscious. There is nobody around to hear him say this, yet he says it anyway. When Trunks reveals himself, Giru complains that he's late. Late for what? What does that mean? How would the situation have been improved had Trunks shown up earlier? Weren't you trying to buy time for Trunks to do whatever it is he's doing? It seems like all these shenanigans pulled that off quite well, which couldn't have happened if Trunks had given up the secret earlier. What really stuck out to me watching this twist play out is how little the characters actually say while trying so hard to seem smart. They know if they go into any level of detail, the entire premise will topple like a house of cards, so instead, they don't explain anything. They just toss around phrases like, "You're late," and "I knew something like that was going on," so that the characters sound like savvy masterminds, instead of nonsensical doofuses. It's all done for the purpose of shocking the audience, but it falls apart under the slightest scrutiny, which is why they provide none. The saddest thing is, the twist devalues the story it had been trying to tell. Whatever I think about the execution of the Pan-Giru relationship, there is an idea there, botched though it may be. These are two characters in conflict, who eventually make amends, only for one to find out the other has been deceiving her all along. That is what motivates Pan throughout these episodes. That betrayal of feeling the twist of that knife is what allows her to destroy Nut. I pointed out last time this really cool shot of Giru trying to cover his eye so he can't see Pan confronting him. It's the guilt he can't escape. Oh wait, never mind. I guess that's just part of the act because Giru has nothing to feel guilty about. Turning this into a fake-out renders all of that meaningless. It renders their entire character arcs meaningless. Pan isn't even being tricked for any tangible purpose. Think about this. Giru has every reason to feel motivated betraying this angry abuser. Would it not have been infinitely more interesting for Giru to actually struggle in regards to the morality of his actions? To have to fight his programming? To demonstrate that he has relationships and loyalties on M2 that he'd be betraying if he stands up for Goku, Pan, and Trunks? Maybe we could give him an arc where he initially planned to betray them but then ultimately decided not to? Oh, I'm sorry, what am I thinking? If we spend any time exploring Giru's emotions, then that spoils our twist, and we can't have that. Let me be clear, a story can be vague, it can be subtle, it can expect you to fill in the gaps. I think the Dragon Balls are a good example of that. It's never stated, but Giru gives Pan the Dragon Balls. It's not even all that subtle. We see his metal get squeezed through as well. He's sending a message. Like I said, the problem with that is conveyance. We only see her get one Dragon Ball, no metal. The message is strangely lost on her, but at least we can understand it. Ignoring that, my point is, there's a difference between a story being vague because it expects us to read between the lines, and a story being vague because it has no idea what it's doing. The heroes and Mew enter the baby room, which looks pretty cool, like an evil planetarium. It even has some serious mood lighting, displaying comet flashes or lightning strikes or plumes of water whenever someone says something appropriately dramatic. How convenient! Trunks spends the first half of the episode expositing all about Baby, and by all about Baby, I mean the most generalized stuff you could possibly imagine that does all it can to dance around any details that might risk revealing how made up it all is. For the second episode in a row, they're saying very little, but in this case, they're taking an eternity to say it. Giru says he heard a rumor that Dr. Mew was making something new. Okay, how did you hear that? He adds that Dr. Mew planned to destroy all the other machine mutants after Baby was finished. Okay, why? Trunks says when he learned about it, when did you learn about it? He decided he had to do something. What? And so now he has stopped Dr. Mew's plans. How? At various points he says that he turned the computer off or that he reprogrammed it. Somehow. He says Baby is a neo-machine mutant, but he's built totally differently from all the others. In what way? Dr. Mew insists he will stop this virus. Oh, there's a virus? First I'm hearing of it. How did you know that? Who told you that? Gah! I feel like I'm putting passive-aggressive correction citations on a poorly written Wikipedia article. Then Dr. Mew talks about all the energy he channeled to Baby from Lude. Wait, we're working Lude into this? The same guy who punished Doltaki for endangering Lude by activating him before his energy was at full was harvesting energy away from him? You know what? Go back to your meaningless generalizations because your specifics are stupid. At one point, Dr. Mew questions how Trunks, a human, could know the secrets of Baby. And we know he knows Trunks is a Saiyan since that's the whole reason he's interested in him. So in case you've forgotten, and I feel most of you have, in Dragon Ball, human applies to aliens too. You have to hand it to Trunks though. No matter the timeline, he's going to be the one dedicated to stamping out an artificial life before it achieves its perfect form. But I also don't have to hand it to Trunks because, After all that vague, nondescript planning, scheming, and lying he did to prevent the subjugation of the whole galaxy, or universe, or big space place, he does absolutely nothing to stop Dr. Mew from making his way across the catwalk to Baby's pod and start trying to effect repairs. He just has his fingers all up in the controls while everyone's talking. He does this for half an episode. Anybody want to stop him? Anybody? Are we concerned about this at all? You don't think that the guy who created all this stuff might have some tricks up his sleeve you don't know about? Restrain him! Move him! Do something! Amazingly, this negligence doesn't allow Dr. Mew to purge the virus or unhack the hacking or whatever he's doing to undo whatever was done. It's only after Goku starts climbing on the pod and Dr. Mew complains, referring to him as a disgusting Saiyan, that Baby finally snaps open his creepy eyes. As Dr. Mew backs away, Trunks and Pan look at him as if they didn't even notice what just happened. Given how this episode has gone so far, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they didn't. But when the capsule starts flashing, they notice that. Baby in his pod looks so wonderfully unsettling, from his misshapen head to his accordion joints to his bulbous eyes. I wish he stayed looking like this forever. Unfortunately, the eyes are immediately covered up by the same sunglasses visor that Dr. Mew has, thus removing his most striking feature. And so we begin the very long process of incrementally depreciating Baby's design until, by the end, he's too garishly hideous to even look at anymore. Like, there's a difference between science experiment that's an affront to man and God hideous, and 80s aerobics instructor gets a stint performing at a Vegas lounge hideous. But I'm getting ahead of myself. As Baby begins to grow and pulsate and Dr. Mew gloats and Giru calls out danger repeatedly, the heroes, and I can't stress this enough, don't do anything. I know I keep saying this, but it just keeps happening. Blow up the pod. Do something. But they don't. Of course they don't. Giru is the only one with any sense of urgency, and Pan is holding him back. Baby breaks free, destroying the walls of the planetarium lab. This doesn't do much for Dr. Mew, who is torn to shreds by the explosion. Baby continues to be creepy by making weird clicking sounds and crawling with his hands. When Baby attacks, the heroes finally do something, firing a bunch of blasts at Baby that seem to kill him. Mew summons a ship to escape, but doesn't notice that a bit of Baby latches onto him. Pan insists they won't let him get away. Spoilers, they let him get away. Trunks assures her, though, that Baby is dead and Mew can't do anything by himself. What? How are you this stupid? He had an entire planet with a cult under his sway. He still has an entire planet full of robots and a naked general that's stronger than Majin Buu. You yourself said he had spread his machine mutants throughout the space. He's done plenty of damage without Baby, and he's very much not alone. I hate you people! At any rate, they say they have Dragon Balls to collect. While Pan worries that their spaceship was wrecked, Trunks assures her that Giru's magic wand can fix it. And I want to complain that neither of them should know about that because neither was there when it happened, but this episode is already too stupid for words. In space, Mew insists he won't let the Saiyans ruin his plans to take over the galaxy, so, good call there, Trunks. Mew insists he will rebuild his baby. But then he starts speaking with Baby's voice, who says he hates when Mew calls him that. He bursts forth from Mew, revealing that it is not Mew who created Baby, but Baby who created Mew so that Mew could create him. Oh my... We just had to work in one more stupid twist that doesn't make any sense and adds nothing to the story. So let me once again put this into perspective for all of you. Baby created Mew, who created Baby, but he also created Rild and the Lewd Cult, which employed Doltaki, who was the shadowy overlord fronted by Mochi Mochi, who was actually the Whip Mochi in charge of Mochi, who employed the Pada Pada brothers, who disguised themselves as a villager of Calvo to steal the Dragon Ball in order to gather energy to resurrect Lewd, except that it was actually to resurrect Baby. Mew also sent out Giru as a sleeper agent, except that he didn't because it was a trick. Holy crap, this is stupidly convoluted. That's at least 8 twist reveals over the course of 15 episodes. I think it might be 9. Actually, I think it's 10. Apparently, Baby was the mastermind behind all of this, pulling all the strings, setting everything into motion. But he also somehow lacked the ability to keep Mew from calling him Baby. Nobody puts Baby in a corner. Well, to put a final cap on this stupidity, Baby ends the episode by looking at an image of M2 and declaring that the Saiyans will never get off that planet. Hey, dumbass. They're already off that planet. Ugh. Oh, also a Dragon Ball pops out of Dr. Mew's head. Somehow. Whatever. So that's Phase 2 in Dragon Ball GT's transitionary period. If the first phase was about sneaking in an overarching plot so stealthily you don't even notice it, this one wants to make sure you know that everything is changing. There's a much bigger emphasis on fighting, a revolving door of super strong heavies to take down. The bonds of the heroes are tested. The actual big bad is finally revealed. Phase 2 is a far more obvious shift than Phase 1. In fact, it's the flashpoint of the entire arc. Unfortunately, when it comes to executing those goals, this fails miserably, especially in its last 2 episodes. Baby's introduction is fantastic, don't get me wrong. He is creepy and dangerous and immediately pervasive. But that's not nearly enough to make up for all the ways it stumbles. The bonds of the heroes aren't actually tested. There is no impressive plan. We aren't seeing chess masters reveal their grand strategy. We're just given vague assurances that they are. When both the heroes and villains get the chance to be proactive to further their own goals, they stand around like idiots. The heroes in particular spend an entire episode failing to learn the same lesson over and over and over again. Episode 22 is where Dragon Ball GT really had to sell it, and I don't know if I've ever seen an episode botch everything so completely. And considering the end of episode 21 was no great shakes either, that's a bad sign. Well, Baby's in the driver's seat now, which means it's on to Phase 3. That's going to be for next time, though, as the Dragon Ball hunt continues and things get at least a little less stupid. Thanks so much for watching. I know you know the rilled by now. I couldn't do what I do without my patrons. If you're interested in helping, I have a goal set up to review the Dragon Ball prototypes. And I've worked ridiculously hard on other big projects I hope you'll check out if you haven't already. I'll see you next time.